Okay, welcome to Author at Home, and this is by far our most ambitious workshop that we have created to date. We've designed it in a way that any level will be able to make this. Ideally, it's really good to start off with the small Lilly bowl workshop first, whether you're purchasing one of our kits or you're just doing this on your own accord. It's a good idea. It'll just help give you the fundamentals that will really step into making the large Lilly bowl. So yeah, we're going to jump into it. I'll just quickly talk through what we have in the kit. If you are doing this on your own without purchasing one of our kits, in the show notes you'll see a list of everything that you'll need to make this. You can make this using air-dried clay. Just bear in mind this is quite a large piece, so doing this with air-dried clay is probably a little bit more risky in terms of putting all this work in, and they're just not something that's going to last forever. So ideally, make this and take it to your local pottery club, use stoneware and get it fired. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing that you'll have is your large lump of clay. So again, I'm using our sand dune clay. This is a beautiful, strong clay. It's really good to work with, and the end result is just stunning. This beauty, this is the sand dune clay, and this is our large Lilly bowl. This is what we're tackling today. So it's a beautiful size, the shape is just stunning, and this clay is out of this world. So this is made with sand from the east and west coast, so it's got a little bit of black sand, a little bit of that white sand through, so it's got a lot of character. So you're going to get your lump of clay, depending on which clay you've picked. And then in our trusty box, again, we have our little needle, and we have our sponge. So the tools that we need for all of our workshops are pretty simple. A lot of it is just bending, folding, and learning to understand how the clay works and sitting back and having some fun. The next thing we have this time around are these little polystyrene balls. Now polystyrene is great because it stops, the clay won't really stick to it. And as the clay dries and moves, this will sort of slip and slide with it. So it's a perfect little tool to be using to help manipulate the clay. So we have 6 balls in your little kit. 6 balls in your little kit here. And as I run through the workshop, you'll be able to use as many of these. You'll be able to use the whole 6 or 5 or 4, depending on the shape that you want to go for. And that's it. And there's a list of instructions in there for anyone that just wants to go for it. The other thing you'll have that you'll need to use from your home is a rolling pin. Again, it's a great idea just to buy a bottle of wine, use the wine bottle to roll out the sheet and make sure you drink the whole bottle. No, jokes. Cool, so that's it. And then we have our large wooden board. Now, this is quite key. You can use a chopping board. If you don't have a large enough chopping board, or you don't have a large piece of wood, you can use fabric, or you can do it on a wooden table. Wherever you make it, the only thing is it will need to sit there for a few days until it's dry enough to move. So ideally you want to be working on and making your platter on a surface where it can stay for a while. Cool, shall we get into it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the camera angle around so that you can really get on top, or cut off my schnoggin. You don't need to see my head, and we'll focus directly on the clay, and that way we can get nice and close. The trick with this, just like the other one, with making the Lilly bowls, it all comes down to rolling out the clay, rolling out the big sheets of clay. So I'm going to get rid of my chair and we're going to crack into it. I'll get rid of this box. Oh, last thing I almost forgot was our bowl of water. So we're just going to need a small bowl of water, and that's going to help us tidy up all the edges and all that kind of jazz. Okay, so should we get into it? Let's do it. If you're not quite ready, you can pause the video and set your station up, and then press play, watch through, watch, pause, all that kind of jazz. So I'm going to start rolling. So with my sheet of clay, you'll have a large lump. I've just started by using the flat part of my hand and push down on the clay just to get it nice and flat to start with. This takes a huge amount of work away from the rolling pin. Oh, that's just reminded me. There's one more thing in the box. This is our stencil. So this will come in a large sheet of paper. You just need to use your scissors to cut that out. This is basically the size of the bowl that we want to make. So you can cut out to exactly this size. You can go a little bit smaller. Ideally, don't go any bigger. Don't get any bigger than this, because this is the size that will fit in most kiln shelves, most sort of large kiln shelves. So if you go any bigger, you could just have a lot of trouble firing it. So I use this as the maximum size, but you can go smaller if you want to. Cool, all right. Now we're ready. Let's do it. Okay. Again, nice, fluid motions. The trick with this is really lifting the clay up, flipping the clay over. And we are going to do this multiple times. The reason we do that is as we roll the clay out, you get a lot of friction between the board and the clay, and they kind of grip together. So every time we lift the clay up and flip the clay over, it helps release and relax that clay. So we're just going to keep rolling this out. So nice fluid motions like this. Lift the clay up, flip it over. Now remember, we're trying to roll in a large circle. So what you want to do is make sure you're rolling this way, forwards and backwards, and side to side. If you start to get too long, then just focus on rolling this way. If it's getting too long this way, just focus on rolling this way, so that we get a nice round shape. So we'll flip that over, nice long strokes. Avoid going like this in one or two spots, because you'll get an uneven kind of wavy pattern, and we don't want that. So we just want to go nice, kind of long rolls. All right. Roll her out. And then flip it over. Roll it out. Lift it up. Flip it over. Now you will get marks on the clay from the rolling pin. Don't worry about that. We're going to get rid of that once we cut out the sheet using our sponge and our fingers to wipe away all of those. So just focus on getting nice, even clay. As you can see, every time I lift it up and I plonk the clay down, the clay is really stretching out. And so as you start to get thinner and thinner, you want to be careful about flipping the clay over, because it will stretch out, and you can go from being a little bit too thick to a little bit too thin really quickly. Okay. So as you're rolling it out, when you think you're at the perfect spot, what you want to do is grab your template and lay it over. And you'll be able to see that I'm not quite there. I still have a little ways to go, so I'm going to keep rolling out. Okay. And mine is very thick, so I need to go a little bit more this way. So I'm going to flip the clay over, and we're going to focus on rolling long ways. Now this clay is pretty strong, depending on which clay you choose, or if you're using a clay that you've purchased, you might have to be a little bit careful how you handle it. The best way is simply to lift the clay up from the back, up and straight up. Alright, it's looking pretty good. Last few rolls. Almost there, not quite. I need to go a little bit bigger. So, off we go again. Okay, that looks good. Our sheet over. That's the money shot. Perfect. So now we're going to use our needle, and we're going to cut around the form. So scratching the knife, we're going all the way around. Now mine didn't, just discard the offcuts. I'm going to remove this, and as you can see, I got a few wonky bits here because I didn't quite roll the clay out wide enough on this side. That's totally fine. You can just use your rolling pin to roll it out a little bit further, or just tidy these up freehand so that the circle is a little bit more circular. But it doesn't matter too much. Once we start folding up the edges, you'll never notice those, and the organic nature of this bowl, it doesn't matter too much. Okay, that's stage one. Now we're going to use our sponge. We're squeezing all of the water out. So our sponge, squeeze all the water out. So you just have a nice damp sponge left. And then we're going to go around the edges. Alright. So this is that point that you want to get rid of all those little marks. If there's any big roller marks, you can just use your finger to rub them in, or using your sponge. Nice long, smooth motions. Making sure you really go around that edge so that it's nice and round and not sharp. Now the hard part is flipping the clay over. Before we flip the clay over, we want to use our little needle to put our maker's mark in. So that's just writing your name or putting a little picture, whatever you want that to be. I don't actually know what I wrote then. It's just like a weird little symbol. Anyway, you write whatever you want that to be. It could be your name, it could be the year, the date, whatever. Just be careful not to go too deep, otherwise you'll be making a bit of a sieve, which is great for pasta, but not what we want today. So now I'm going to flip this over. So like I said before, it's good to grab the clay from the front like this. And we're going to do this and we're going to be really confident and not scared. So grab it from the front. We're going to lift it up and just flip it over. Be careful not to slap the clay down because it'll stretch it out too much. So I'm going to change the camera angle. We're going to zoom right in and we're going to finish off this beautiful platter. Okay, so same again. With our sponge, squeeze all of the water out. Damp sponge. We're going around those edges. Really spending some time to make sure that the edges are nice and smooth. They are exactly how we want them to be, because how you leave the clay now to dry is how it will look when it's fired. Unless you have a magical little fairy that's going to come and fix stuff up for you. So this is that part of the night or the day, the workshop, whatever time it is, for you to sit back, pull up a chair, relax, chat, have fun, and spend time on really perfecting the edges. Making sure the top is nice and smooth. Now you're going to get little finger marks, 100%. It's really hard to get rid of all of those, and you don't want to because it's handmade, you know, and that's the nature of handmade, and that's what makes it special. Right, so now is the fun part. Now we're going to grab out our little foam balls one by one and place these under to start to get that bend and fold that we're looking for. So we start with one corner and we're just going to lift it up, sit the ball under nice and tight, and let the clay relax over. Don't go pushing down on it. Just let it sit really naturally. Ooh. Okay, now comes the next one. So this is going to sit next to the other piece. So they're about a ball apart. So it's a ball, almost a ball's gap, and then another ball. And we're going to follow this the whole way around. So grab another ball and we lift that up, spin it around. We grab another ball, place it under, spin it around. Grab another ball, place it under, spin it around, and grab your last ball and place it under. Just like so. Now is the part where we're going to spend a bit of time to shuffle these around and make sure that we're happy with the shape. Okay, so now we've got all of the foam balls placed around the platter. It's time to sort of adjust them and make sure it looks exactly how we want it to. And I want it to look pretty even. I like the even nature of this. It makes the organic feel of this platter sort of make a little bit more sense, to me anyway. So we're going to stand over it and you're going to go around and spend a bit of time adjusting each of the balls. You can kind of spin it around, make sure they're all in place. There's none that are sitting too close to one another. See, this edge here for me is a bit too low, so I want to get a little bit more height. So I'm going to spin that one around. I want this to be quite tall. So if you want a good amount of height, you need the balls to sit nice and snug. That's going to give you the height. If you want it to be quite low, you want the balls sitting out, and that'll sit a bit lower. So where you place the balls, whether they're far in or far out, will decide on that height. So first, we're going to get them into place, and then we'll go around and sort of control the actual shape of each bend and fold. So I'm actually pretty happy with that. They're all reasonably even. The height's right where I want it to be. I'm pretty happy. And I think that the key is really just embracing how they land a little bit. So now I'm going to spend a little bit of time. I don't want to go and press hard like this because you'll get this really cuppy looking kind of feel at the end result. They look like these little cups, so avoid pushing down like that and just let them sit quite naturally. You can use your hands to bend the clay. That's pretty much it. I'm really happy with that. I think it looks really nice. It's nice and even. It's a good size. So now we're going to go around with our sponge one last time, just to make sure that we've gotten rid of any other little marks that we might have sort of created while we were manipulating the clay. Mine's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. You can see, although I've done this hundreds of times, so it's definitely, I'm going to make it look a little bit easier. But the trick really is to try not to overthink it. Getting that sheet of clay out nice and flat and nice and even, and cutting your shape as circle as you can. As you can see, you can't even notice that mine was slightly, it wasn't quite circle. I didn't quite roll the edges out. Once you get to this, you can't even notice. Some of you might want to purposely create a wavy shape. That's totally up to you. The trick is just really letting it happen. Just sit back, relax, put the balls in, and then start to shift and move them around. Now, one last thing we've got to do before we leave this to dry is using the leftover clay. Not all of it, just some of it. You're going to rip off about a golf ball size ball of clay. And that clay is going to be wedged underneath the foam ball. You're going to push it under and then squish the clay down a little bit. What this does is it stops the foam balls, when the clay is drying, they will just ping out. And as the clay is still soft when this happens, these will ping out and the clay will start to sink down a little bit. So the height of your platter will dramatically change as it sinks down. Putting the clay underneath just wedges these balls into place and stops them from popping out, and it just helps keep that height. Now, all clay, during the firing process, because the best fire goes up to 1,000 degrees, final firing 1,200, 1,220 degrees, the clay gets so hot it will relax and it will shift, it will move, it will sink a little bit, and obviously it's going to shrink to by about 10%. So you've got to factor all that in, and that's the beauty of clay, is that it's such a natural process. Well, I mean, putting it in a kiln is not that natural, but you know what I mean. It's you just have to kind of let go and let it happen, and what it comes out is what it was meant to be. Alright, so we'll go around, put that clay in each little pocket, and that's it. Now we're going to sit it to the side, or leave it on the bench, leave it where you've made it. If it's on a board, you can move it around. You can see here, it's looking pretty good, pretty jazzy. And we're going to let this dry. If you are using a local kiln service, it's ideal to reach out to them before you make it. See if you can book in the firing. See if they will let you dry it at their at the local pottery club. These are really good to transfer if you've got a wooden board like this, to transfer them when they're still a little bit soft. But if not, let it get bone dry over a week. And if you are making this in the middle of summer, it is a really good idea if you have some plastic or something like that to lay the plastic over it, or put it into a dark place in the house. If you have a shed or a room, somewhere where it's not going to get intense sunlight and dry too fast. If these dry too fast, they can crack just a little bit. So just factor that in. Don't put it in direct heat and try to rush drying it. It's a good idea to let these dry in a dark, cool place over sort of a week's time. And then drop it off to your local clay club and get it fired. So yeah, the end result is going to look a little bit like this. So that is our large Lilly bowl platter. Thank you so much for joining us and giving Author at Home a go. We hope you've loved making it. We can't wait to see your creations. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out. Let us know. We always want to improve on these videos as well. So if you've got any feedback, that would be super helpful. And if you are joining us for the first time and you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. It helps us a whole lot to get our work out there and to share our knowledge. So thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Don't forget, we have our boring platter as well. If you haven't done the mini Lilly bowl, give that a whirl, and we have our creative set coming out as well. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm Stephen. We'll see you later.